It's getting pop-ups for porn.
That's staying in. Oh, mama!
Oh, mama!
Welcome to Button Chops, the podcast where two miserable millennials from Northern England ask, what's the crack with video games? My name's Chris.
My name's Matthew.
And it's another week that we are still alive. How's it going?
I'm all right, yeah. I'm good. Do you like my cap?
I hate it. I hate it, mate. It's a Jurassic Park cap, everyone.
Well, no one really knows what Jurassic Park is. A little-known indie film.
That's why I hate it, because I don't know what it is. What is it?
I look like I'm about to push someone through sell your kids tickets to a little Stegosaurus pen. My headphones on.
Yeah. What, you're out on the streets of London trying to sort of herd tourists into a really shit attraction.
For a little flyer. Do you want to come to Jurassic Park?
I remember once I went on to Edinburgh with my family, and you know how they've got the Edinburgh Dungeon?
Yeah.
Well, across the road they have a really shit knockoff version of it's literally directly across the road from Edinburgh Dungeon. It's the Dungeon of Edinburgh or something. And I remember walking through, and on one side of the street they've got the Edinburgh Dungeon where they don't have any people on the street haranguing you to come in because it's the Edinburgh Dungeon, everybody knows about it. And then on the other side of the street there's proper dodgy people wearing sandwich boards and stuff being come into the Dungeon of Edinburgh. And when you go anywhere with my parents, my mom is always completely taken in by those kinds of people.
Yeah.
So we were kind of on one side of the street. I was I want to go to the Edinburgh Dungeon, trying to get her to take us there. But then the Dungeon of Edinburgh, the cheap shit one, was a cheap shit one. So she was oh, well, let's go into this one. worst day of my life.
Is it the basement flat of someone's house?
It was yeah. It was literally someone had acquired some fucking mannequins from a closed down clothes shop and put a Viking helmet on it or something and painted some fake blood on it and be yeah, this is history.
Pop by the scrapyard and nick the bumper off a car and put it on the mannequin's head.
Yeah, it was literally that sort of crap.
How are you anyway?
I mean, I was fine until you made me think about the time that I had to go to the shit Edinburgh Dungeon.
You went into the dungeons.
I'm now questioning my own memory. I don't know if this even happened to me or if it was just a dream.
If you're from Edinburgh, let us know if the Edinburgh Dungeon really exists.
Yeah, please let us know.
Speaking of dungeons, we're speaking about all sorts of spooky rockeries and monsters.
That was an amazing segue. You absolutely fucking nailed that one. Speaking of dungeons, this week we're going to be talking about Elden Ring. Before we get into it, though, just another reminder that if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I had a friend reach out after listening to the last podcast and was I've been listening on Spotify, how do I leave a review?
Yeah, I've had one of them as well.
This only applies if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, but please leave a review because it helps the podcast massively.
Or if you are on Spotify, go over to Apple, listen to our 5-hour feature-length Games of the Generation again, and then review it, because that will really help.
We need your help. Yeah, so Elden Ring, there was a leak trailer this week. Did you watch it?
I did, yeah.
Me too.
Just today.
So I thought, you thought actually, we should probably talk about this now because it's very much likely that there's going to be a proper announcement and trailer.
Yeah.
Dropping very soon after this leaked footage. Although, I was just sort of doing that, because we're proper games journalists. I was doing some research before the show. And apparently this leaked footage is from it's a year old, apparently.
Really?
It's an internal trailer that was never meant to be publicly released. And it's from a year-old build of the game.
Right.
Again, I can't verify any of this. This is what so-called credible leakers on the internet are saying.
Yeah. Well, I still think that I still think that it's going to push something from them, because if that is the case, if it's a year-old build and maybe the graphics and stuff aren't quite up to the standard that they want it, or maybe, the quality control in them says that they don't want that kind of stuff online being seen by a lot of people, you'd hope that they're going to push some out pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like anything. It's like back in the day when albums used to leak on like torrent websites.
On LimeWire.
You just wanted to kind of people want to get ahead of that, so it's likely that this will at least prompt some sort of release. Although it's been sort of rumored that a trailer drop has been imminent for quite a while now, so it seems likely it's happening very soon. So we thought we would talk about what we already know about Elden Ring, but also what we want from it.
Yeah, a little wish list for Miyazaki himself, because we know he's a keen listener.
I'm sure he'll definitely listen. And not only will he have like the language barrier of Japanese to English to contend with, he'll have to work through our fucking impenetrable accents.
He ain't listening. He ain't listening to any podcast.
He's down in his basement flogging himself with a big stick.
He's going out camping with the family.
Yeah.
I reckon he takes like 6-foot swords out, or 12-foot swords even, when he goes camping. It's like, Miyazaki, get a bonfire on. It's just like, bosh, sword into a bit of stone. You have fire.
He just clicks his fingers and it's
He just sits by a fucking sword in a bit of wood. It's just like, it's not working.
Shall we get on with it? What do we already know about Elden Ring? What do you know about Elden Ring? Tell me right now what you already know about Elden Ring.
Elden Ring's a FromSoft game coming soon, which is a completely new start, a new series, quite similar to how they did Sekiro. So for anyone listening, FromSoft, famous for developing Dark Souls generally, which spawned Bloodborne and then Sekiro. Elden Ring has been very great. Until you told me there was information on it, I didn't know there was information. I thought it was just screenshots. So this represents a new step, and I think the reason I think a wishlist is quite a cool idea is because FromSoft seem to have set a standard within themselves now that every new series has a slight iteration on like their core mechanics.
Yeah.
Bloodborne went a bit more action heavy. It's very quick compared to previous games. And Sekiro, deflect central.
Yeah, I mean, like they always keep the same sort of core mechanics that were set down in like Demon Souls, but they always sort of change it up a little bit with each release. I mean, the Dark Souls trilogy sort of excluded because they're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
With only like slight changes, but each time they bring out a new sort of like IP, it always tends to keep some of the core sort of DNA of it, but it's definitely always its own thing. So it was never really a given, even though it looks like it's much more in the vein of Dark Souls, with it being like a dark fantasy type thing from that reveal trailer from 2019. It was never really a given that this was gonna be just like a Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
So I mean, the stuff that's already been announced on the internet, I've taken the liberties of rounding up a little quick list.
Hit me with your news stick, baby.
Brace yourself, baby. It's a third-person fantasy action RPG. Belongs in the same genre as Dark Souls, if you couldn't tell. Apparently, there will be more equipment variety than Souls, which is interesting. Because, I mean, the Dark Souls games in particular have an absurd amount of, like, weapons and armor and stuff in them, don't they?
Yeah, I wonder if you're going to be able to, like, turn up with, like, Porsche 911s and stuff.
They're running it in the same engine as Grand Theft Auto 5.
Fighter jets across, like, a fantasy environment.
I'd be up for that. No fixed protagonist. I think this was something that we were both a little bit sort of... we didn't realise this had been announced, because obviously Sekiro is like was a bit of a departure for FromSoft, with them making it a sort of narrative-driven game with a central defined character instead of like you just build your own.
Yeah.
So it looks like this is going to be the same sort of thing. and this is going to be their first, I'm doing air quotes, open world game.
That's a big thing, isn't it? That's got to be the big thing about this game.
Yeah,
Surely.
I mean, when I think about it, in my brain I'm just imagining Dark Souls, but on a big map. I'm sure that there will be a lot more to it than that, but I'm just sort of interested how that will work, because so much of Dark Souls works because it's like a very finely constructed sort of series of balanced mechanics. And like if you tweak certain elements, other things don't really work the same way anymore. Like, for example, the fact that Dark Souls it's not an open world, but it's kind of like got like a series of hub worlds almost. I don't even know how you describe it. It's like a series of interconnected levels and everything connects together.
I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't say it was much different than an open world technically, because I know that, like, I've looked at videos and stuff on YouTube where they show like the map in detail, and how a lot of the map is actually, you could go from one point to the other with very little loading screens. Only every now and again it makes you actually teleport to a different space. The absolute vast majority of that world you can run through, and it'd take a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not really much different. I think sometimes open worlds in games just seems to mean like actual vast open space. You could go in any degree, you know? You're not limited to like go down there. You can go west, north, south, wherever you want to go.
You can go in all the directions. All the directions. Name a direction. You can go in it.
You can go up and collect your extra equipment variety in a rocket from outer space.
You can go to Los Santos Airport and steal an airliner. Yeah, I think that's kind of what they're saying. Like, I think I'm imagining sort of Breath of the Wild sort of style openness, where it's a big sort of open plains, and from the very get-go you can go anywhere you want and tackle the game in any order. I think that is kind of that's how I'm interpreting this.
I think actually, now you mention it, when you first said it there, I was like, oh no, and not because I hate Zelda, because I can imagine it being like, say 6-7 places across the map with their own unique character, whether it's like, the fiery place with the volcano, then the prison space, and all of these different themes, then have like a core boss that you need to tackle. But to get to that boss, you have to tackle mini bosses to proceed through that core area. But then, you might get to one bit and you haven't leveled up enough, so you need to go to another part of the world to get better equipment and things like that. I can imagine that happening now you've mentioned it.
Well, just like sort of getting back to what I was saying about how Dark Souls is constructed in a really sort of distinctive way. One thing that I think really sets the FromSoft games apart is their approach to like dying and healing, because the way that they're built is sort of you hit, like in Dark Souls it's bonfires. There are always like these checkpoints in the various games. There are different types of things like lanterns in Bloodborne, and then you then have like sort of limited healing capacity up until you get to the next checkpoint. How do you make that work in an open world? Because the way Dark Souls is constructed is that everything is sort of connected, but also it's very linear. You have to get from point A to point B to hit the checkpoint, and then from there on, that's kind of the progression model, So the open world design means that it's going to have big implications for how the traditional sort of healing, the traditional approach to healing was in the Souls games,
Yeah.
So I don't know. They're obviously going to have to make some, because of the way that they're approaching the design of the world, they're going to have to make some fundamental changes to the things that you sort of take for granted from like a FromSoft game.
I'd like to see them like, but I mean, this is me completely gone off my head, but it's a good job Miyazaki's listening so you can take some tips. But I'd quite like to see like some idea of like, like survival, where if the world is like littered with checkpoints, maybe you've got like the equivalent of an Estus flask or a secondary flask, and it's got something that you need to survive, but it's technically going to run out if you don't get to the next checkpoint on time. So you actually have to navigate the world quickly and effectively to get to the next part of the world. And if you don't, your character just collapses and has to go back to where he was before, which would encourage you to it'd have like a roguelike feeling where you like try and go north and then you realise you can't go north.
Yeah.
Then you come back and you're like, oh, I've died, but you haven't died because you've died knowing that you shouldn't go north. You go west instead, and then you see something over the top of the hill that you can get to. I'd quite like to see something like that, but I just hope that this game isn't just like an open world. I mean, we'll get to the trailer in a bit, but I just hope it's not like...
I fundamentally just have unwavering faith in FromSoftware. I'm fully in the cult. So until I see like a proper trailer and get much more of a feel for how it works and we get more information, like I just have utmost confidence in it. But the other big thing about Elden Ring is that Miyazaki has written the story, but George R.R. Martin is collaborating on the project. So I think a few weeks ago we were talking about this and we were like, oh, in our like really well-informed journalistic fashion, we're like, I don't understand what who's writing the story and what's happening with that. But Miyazaki, turns out it is publicly known, Miyazaki has written the story, George R.R. Martin has written the mythos. I don't understand what the George R.R. Martin's doing, because he does the Game of Thrones, doesn't he?
Bloody hell.
So it's like, I guess like all of like the item lore and stuff, like that's all going to be the work of George R.R. Martin, like that. The stuff that is the backdrop to the actual story, like the history of the world and stuff like that. What do you think?
Hopefully he writes it anytime soon then.
Did you see Jason Schreier's tweet?
No.
I think he said something along to the effect of the Elden Ring will get a proper trailer, and this was before the leak as well. We'll get like a proper trailer and stuff soon. It isn't going to be a Winds of Winter. Elden Ring has pages. So yeah, I'm assuming George R.R. Martin's involvement is well and truly finished. Like he's already contributed his part to it.
Yeah, well, you'd imagine if he's sort of building the world and the lore that sort of shapes the character and the visuals of the world, that if the trailer's about to drop, or even from that trailer that we've seen, like it looks like it's sort of fleshed out enough that he's probably done his job a few years ago. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think as well, not to go off on a tangent about Game of Thrones because I don't really care, but it just seems like he's doing everything he can to avoid writing the final Game of Thrones, because it's not like he hasn't been doing stuff. Like he's been publishing like all sorts of like Song of Ice and Fire, like lore and mythology books. I think like that's his jam. Like he just likes writing weird arcane lore for things. So, and I imagine if it's the mythos, then I don't know. I don't even know how that would work. But presumably Miyazaki had a story outline, Martin provided the lore, and then they built on that. So I think his involvement is already completed.
I like that. I like that potentially, he could open the Soulsborne series up to like a few more people from just being involved. I think people look at like, looking game and you pick up like a Dark Souls box and you've never touched a Soulsborne game in your life. They're quite intimidating. But I think if you see George R.R. Martin, you might be a bit inclined to think that there's at least some story there that you could get involved in, or at least to pique your interest a little bit more. Because I think Soulsborne could do with more players, to be fair. Deserves a bit more.
When this was announced, I still hadn't played any Souls games, like any of them. And I remember the announcement going out and me going, George R.R. Martin's working on a game, and clicking on the article, having like no prior knowledge of Souls and not really caring about it at the time.
Yeah. I think it's interesting enough just to get a few more fans. So I think Soulsborne will always keep its core fan base now, but it needs to do a bit more work across the series to like actually reach more people, because there's so many people there. Like not everyone, but some people who are into like some action games and stuff. You could come out of Jedi Fallen Order and be into a Soulsborne game, you know? Be a bit of a challenge, but you get there. So I think it's a good move in that sense.
Well, another thing that is allegedly was public knowledge about Elden Ring was that it would have horse riding in it and horse combat. Combat with horses, where you have one-on-one fist fights with horses.
You do the Grand National.
You literally, it's there's like a UFC octagon, and you get into the octagon, and you've got to kick the shit out of the horse. What do you think?
It's not too far away from Sekiro, then, is it?
I thought you were gonna say it's not too far away from Middlesbrough.
No, I've already got loads of death threats on my last mention in Middlesbrough, so let's keep that one.
We'll keep bringing it up. We'll keep just picking that scab, the Middlesbrough scab. Ironic, seeing as like, do you remember the fucking massive riot outside St James's Park where that guy was filmed punching a police horse in Newcastle? Yeah. Who do I think I am slagging off Middlesbrough?
Yeah, who do you think you are? That doesn't happen in Middlesbrough. Still take horses into Middlesbrough, they'll eat them.
They're banned.
I do like that, but I'm also I do like it. I do like it. I'm not gonna be negative.
Well, this was one of my. Maybe we can come back to this because we've got our own sort of separate little wish lists that we were gonna get into properly after we get past this bit, and one of mine involved this, so we'll come back to that.
Stay tuned, Miyazaki. The wish list is coming, mate. Get the bonfire ready.
Another thing is apparently there won't be like a sort of living population in the open world. You know, in the way that you kind of in a game like Red Dead, there's villages and towns and stuff like that. It's going to be sort of like a world that is sort of dead almost.
So the NPCs in Elden Ring are going to carry on in the same vein that they always have done in Soulsborne games, which is literally just lean against walls.
I'd literally that is exactly what that sounds like.
They literally all just stand completely still.
They just stand on walls or sit down on rocks, and they say really depressing, pessimistic things to you, or tell you that you're shit and you'll never be able to finish the game. That's basically all they do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the more and more I kind of get through this list, I think, well, I don't, again, not to get down on the idea of open world, because I'm interested to see what they do, but I'm kind of like, what's the point, you know? Like, my sort of touchstone there is Metal Gear Solid 5, you've got a massive open world, and there's nobody in it, and, you know, I mean, it's very Miyazaki to go the sort of apocalyptic route of a world that has been ravaged and destroyed, because from the information that's available, it's like it's an open world. It'll be a series of like dungeons and ruins you can explore. Surprise. And the NPCs will exist in like hub areas, and will factor into the like side quests and stuff, which all just sounds like that's Souls, that's Dark Souls. It doesn't seem, they're saying that this is their most ambitious game yet. I'm trying to kind of figure out in my head, apart from the fact that it's going to be an open world now, what about this sounds in particular way more ambitious than the existing Souls games?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, just playing devil's advocate, because like I am excited about this. I should caveat, like I'm not saying I'm not excited. I am really, really excited for it. But...
Yeah. No, I agree, because it doesn't really make much difference if, like, when we talked about before, like, how the previous games are all typically not too far away from being open worlds, apart from the fact that they exist within corridors, technically. But if they just move, like, 4 worlds around and then put empty space in between the 4 worlds, so you could walk between the worlds rather than teleport, which you could do previously, that's not really innovation. That's just, like, adding time. So you can ride your horse between, I'm stuck on this boss, I better ride off to that place. People just use fast travel anyway, so surely they've got something up the sleeve with it. You know, maybe it's a bit, you know, like say Dark Souls has always been quite like vertical in its world design. You go down and up. Like, I was even surprised about Sekiro. Like, you climbing all the way up to the castle, and then you start going all the way down through the world. But maybe this one's quite flat, so it has the same like interlinked level design, but everything's actually really close together, so it's not a big world per se. And as a result, the worlds, you can go through like one section, say the fiery world, and then using my coordinates again, you can go west, but into the other worlds in a different way than you would have done before, maybe. If that makes sense.
Like games like Breath of the Wild, for example, everything is mostly sort of flat. You are just traveling across a big flat land mass, but the Souls games are everything is vertical. You know, they pack a lot into actually what is a relatively small space. And from the sounds of it, they've taken a different approach with this one.
Yeah.
In the sense that I think the map is going to be much more what we think an open world is. Which is probably why it's taken them so long to make it. Another thing I read actually is also, and this never really crossed my mind, but they announced it in 2019, and we've had an entire new console launch since then. So maybe they didn't anticipate that, and they've had to kind of take longer just to build the next gen versions of the games. And I mean, we're just about to get into talking about the leaked trailer with, you know, the release of Demon Souls and stuff, which is just like one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. You know, like FromSoft stuff looks a little sort of shabby in comparison. You know, like maybe they're taking longer to sort of, you know, upscale the graphics and stuff, so it feels much more like it's in the vein of a next gen release.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, it must be, I imagine how weird it is for FromSoft developing a brand new game, and at the same time there's a remake of one of their games from a different studio come out that is like one of the best looking games ever made, in my opinion. You know, like they're probably sitting around like looking at that going, fuck. And I mean, yeah, so we've both watched the leaked trailer. My first takeaway from it, even though it looks like it was filmed on a potato.
Yeah, definitely.
You can barely make out a lot of what's going on in it, but it looks visually very, very similar to Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, it did. It didn't look. I mean, I don't think it's fair for us to say this per se, but from the leak trailer, which is literally someone video at a screen, which is also covered in like watermarks. Probably saying don't fucking video it. It did look a lot like Dark Souls 3, and even atmospherically it did, which is maybe what we were expecting from the initial, like, even just the press photos. But it didn't look too outstanding graphically.
No, it looked like a FromSoft game.
But maybe that's we've had this conversation. Maybe that's the cross-generational limits, you know, because they're still trying to develop it for last gen and the next gen, whereas Demon Souls has been made purely for next gen, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't play FromSoft. I don't expect FromSoft games to have cutting edge graphics. When did Dark Souls 3 come out?
2017-ish.
Yeah, I mean, God of War came out in 2018.
Yeah.
Those games, you know, Dark Souls 3 it's a good looking game, but it doesn't come close to the likes of God of War. You know, the point I'm trying to make is that FromSoft games aren't known for their, you know, outstanding graphical quality. They're very much about their gameplay, so I'm not really that bothered about that.
Yeah, but we just need innovation, don't we? We need some idea, something.
I mean, I'm not even sure I need innovation, to be honest. Again, FromSoft do a very particular thing very well. And they do something that you can't really get anywhere else. There are like Souls-likes and stuff, but none of them ever really sort of come close to the feeling of just playing like a Miyazaki FromSoft game. Yeah. And so, more than anything, I'm just kind of like, I just want my fix of new, FromSoft. Yeah, that's all I really want. Like, I don't.
Is that your wish list?
I don't really. Yeah, I mean, that is really like they could just re-release Dark Souls, and I'd probably be like, "This is genius!" Like, but if you literally have like a box where it's clearly the Dark Souls artwork on it, and then just slapped like a sticker over it saying Elden Ring, and I'd pay like fucking full price for it, being like, "This is a work of art." So I mean, like I watching the trailer, I was like, I mean, there was a couple of things that stood out to me in it. For one thing, it has sneaking in it. Did you notice that?
Well, proper sneaking.
Like Metal Gear Solid style, like crouch walk sneaking.
Really?
Did you not? Yeah, did you not notice that bit?
No.
There's a bunch of different. To be fair, there's a couple of different clips floating about, and there was like a couple of like really short, like 3-4 second ones. Which one did you watch?
The one where the guy's like sort of to the left of the screen.
Did it have the voiceover on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one that has like sneaking and stuff in
Well,
it.
probably, was he just crouch walking?
He's crouch walking behind an enemy, like sneaking up on him. And then there's like a little sort of, I guess it's kind of hard to see, but there was one bit that to me looked like he was doing like a silent takedown from behind.
Did Bloodborne not have sneaking?
No, I mean...
So it's just Sekiro. Sekiro did.
Sekiro has like actual stealth. I mean, like there's Souls stealth to a degree. Like in Bloodborne, you could get behind an enemy, you could walk up behind them, and if you walked up, they wouldn't notice you, and then you could do a backstab on them. And it would like wouldn't always kill them, but it would like do most of their health if you got them from behind. Whereas like Sekiro was like full stealth takedowns. Like you get up behind someone, and you like fucking you do them in one. And it seems like they're integrating that sort of style. Like this is like actual stealth takedowns from behind. Sounds a bit like a euphemism. And there was a clip of like horse riding. So that's a thing.
Yeah, I saw the horse riding thing. My thing with the trailer is that it looked like Ghost of Tsushima. I felt like I was watching it. I was like, "Is that Ghost?" It's like it sort of made me worry that it was just doing something that other games have done now.
Well, I think you've put that. That sort of sums up my feeling about Elden Ring to a degree. Like that sort of not feeling, but there's a sort of like a hidden sort of niggling voice in the back of my head that's like open world, stealth, horse combat. Yeah. That's things that other games do, and whenever I see other games do that, I sort of roll my eyes. So why am I so excited for this? Yeah. Obviously, because it's a FromSoft game, and I have faith that they'll pull it off.
I guess the thing is though, we should like. I shouldn't be like that because that's what's made me only just start playing Sekiro. Because when I first saw the Sekiro trailer, I was like, "Oh, more bloody orange worlds," and with a sword, with a guy with a sword fighting rock solid bosses. I was like, I don't know if I could do it. I hadn't played any of them for like a year and a half at that point, and I was like, nah. But
it's literally all I want.
But I started playing it, and I was like, "This is fucking amazing." And me and you did that with Ghost of Tsushima, because when we first saw the trailer of Ghost of Tsushima, we were both like, "Oh, fucking bollocks open world shit." And I ain't played it yet, but you said one of the best games of last year.
I mean, it's definitely like I wouldn't put it on par with any of the Souls games or Sekiro. Like Sekiro to me is like 10 times better than Ghost of Tsushima, but Ghost of Tsushima is a really good game.
But I think it's easy to write stuff off on like first impressions of trailers sometimes, and like we haven't even really got a proper trailer for this yet, so I kind of just want to try and keep positive so I can actually get this one like when it comes out for the first time since Dark Souls 3.
What is the one thing you really want the game to do?
Looking at my list, I like the idea of it having a more developed multiplayer function, and by multiplayer I don't necessarily mean multiplayer join lobby, go and team deathmatch, but I mean like they've got the foundations for a really interesting like world invasion system, which could work really well in an open world setting. And like I was thinking like, like Destiny, how Destiny you can sort of just go through the world and then you'll eventually come across another player because your two servers sort of merge mid-level, but you don't really realise it's happening, you just see them. And they do it cooperatively in Destiny, and that could be a thing in this. But I quite like the idea of that because it could also link in nicely with the Covenants, because if the Covenants dictate how they reward players, they could set loads of different variants for if you come across someone in the open world, how will you interact with them? And it gives you that, like, when you see someone, it's like, are they going to help me? Have they got something to give me? Or are they going to try and kill me? You know what I mean? And I think, could tie itself nicely to the overall, like, survival feeling that I was hoping for as well, which I said with, like, the checkpoint system. But like, if you're really trying to get to that next, like, safe point to progress through the open world, seeing players and trying to judge how they might interact with you could, like, be pivotal in whether you actually end up getting to that safe point. Never mind the rest of the world. And I think they've already got that. They've already got it. It seems quite feasible that they could integrate something like that into it.
Do you want it, like, almost to have sort of like MMO elements?
I guess, yeah. It'd be very similar to what it already is, which, to anyone listening, they have, like, what do they call them? The signs that you put on the floor?
Oh, like the summon stones.
Yeah.
Stuff.
They've got, like,
I think it depends which one you're
We've got summoning elements where you can summon players to help you cooperatively, but you can also trigger items like the red eye orbs and things to invade other worlds. So you already have it, but it sort of alerts you and then changes your world. So, like, if someone invades your world, you can't get past the current section. But I'd quite like to see it sort of happen invisibly, where, like, you could just come across someone, especially if the NPCs are staying completely still, because it gives it substitute the feeling of, like, nothingness in the open world, because you'd come across players that are adventuring and trying to figure out their way through the world, but then you'd have, like, the what should we do sort of moment.
With Souls, traditionally it is sort of like you either have to summon in or be summoned into someone's world, or, like, invade.
Yeah.
And I think it would be cool to sort of lift away some of that and just make it automatic. So you if you're exploring an open world, you do just happen on another player like that. That would be quite interesting. I don't know how typically FromSoft's multiplayer servers are not very good anyway, so it could be a bit of a big ask, but I think it would definitely be an interesting way of expanding on the way they've done it before, and making it fit into like an open world design in a more refined or interesting way.
Yeah, I mean, because they could have, like, player enemy types. I say player enemy types, so enemy types that are sort of restricted within the confinements of the player's functionality, which they've done in, like, Bloodborne with the hunters and things like that. So you could populate the world with NPCs that also have that kind of, like, what do you do kind of moment, the decision element, but then also add in the online function, so every now and again there's an actual person. Because they've done it, like, what was the Bloodborne boss with, where the players got to be the boss? So you'd take on the boss and a player would summon themselves in as the boss.
There's a Demon Souls boss like that. The old monk in Demon Souls is the one where you get summoned in as the boss. And then there's one in the Dark Souls 3 DLC. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Starlight or something like that. Fuck's sake, I can't remember.
I'm 100% confident there's one of the bosses in, like, one of the churches in Bloodborne. It's like, it's not a massively well-known thing. I think you have to do some things a certain order, and then it summons in a player. So if you do things in a certain way, when you get to the boss arena, it summons in a player rather than fighting the NPC boss.
I'm like, because I'm trying to think, I'm like totally pulling a blank, and I now can't remember a single Bloodborne boss.
Classic.
Where in the game is it? This is going to bug me.
Third of the way through.
A third of the way through.
A lady boss.
A lady boss. Erotic.
A hunter.
A hunter. A lady boss who's a hunter. Nah, I can't think of one. Nah, you've imagined that. A lady boss who's a hunter. Right, hang on. From the top, I'm gonna list all of the Bloodborne bosses. Are you ready?
I won't be able to know.
Cleric Beast.
No.
Father Gascoigne.
No. Like, I hesitated. It's definitely not Father Gascoigne.
Who's next? The Bloodstarved Beast.
No.
After that, it's the Vicar Amelia. And then it's after Vicar Amelia. It depends where you go. Shadows of Yharnam.
No.
Rom the Vacuous Spider.
No, I think it...
The Witches of Hemwick.
No.
The what's he called? The guy in the castle, the one I hate. I love him, but he's really hard. Marta Ligarius.
No. It's none of these.
I'm not stopping. Who's next? You do Realm of Vacuous Spider. The One Reborn. Mikolash, Host of the Nightmare. Murgo's Wet Nurse. Gammon, the First Hunter.
No.
Have I missed any? Oh, Abritus, Daughter of the Cosmos.
No.
The Alien Boys. You know the Alien Boys, the Blue Boys.
No, it's not the Blue Boys.
Not
Spongy
Celestial.
Bobs.
Is Celestial Emissary? Yeah, Celestial Emissary. I feel like I've missed one. Ooh. And then the DLC bosses are Ludwig, Lady Maria, Lawrence.
No.
Orphan of Kos.
No.
I think that's all of them.
I think I've made it up.
I'm pretty sure that's all the bosses. Boop. I'm editing the episode now, and yes, I realise I forgot Dark Beast Pal and Living Failures. And yes, I'm ashamed. Boop. Are you impressed? How long did I spend doing that? I've spent like 5 minutes doing that. Anyway, back to what it was.
Is that your contact list off your phone?
It's the track list from my next album.
That's well annoying, that.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that was on my sort of, I'd like to bring that back, is a similar sort of Demon Souls throwback to having a boss summoned in, would be to have like world tendency system.
Yeah.
I think that in an open world would be quite interesting. Because it's interesting in Demon Souls, but I think if you're going to have an open world, I think a good system to have is for your actions to actually have some effect in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Not everybody's playthrough is going to be the same.
Yeah. I'd quite like them to do that and play into maybe the apocalyptic sort of feel of it, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, should something happen in a certain part of the world, does part of that area then, I don't know, be taken over like a sandstorm covered in sand or set on fire completely and destroyed? Which I can imagine doing, because Dark Souls 3 was nuts, as we talked about in the past, when all the cities and stuff start turning upside down.
Yeah.
Just everything just collapsing in on itself.
I definitely get that vibe from the leaked footage.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, I went back and watched the E3 announcement trailer, and there is like a sense of impending doom. There's like some sort of implication in the trailer that the Elden Ring, whatever it is something to do with like a creation myth, which is very Miyazaki.
Yeah.
Like that's like Dark Souls. The opening of Dark Souls is very much that. And
Do you reckon you get to the end and it's like, do you want to rekindle the Elden Ring?
Yeah.
Fucking Miyazaki, you're at it again, mate. Bloody hell.
He never bloody stops. So yeah, I mean, I think a world tendency system would be interesting. Especially with like the sort of impenetrability of the world tendency system in Demon Souls. Like, it's something that, with it being FromSoft, it wouldn't just be like, whenever we're talking about open world games, I'm like, Red Dead Redemption 2, but like Red Dead Redemption 2, if you...
That is an open world game, though, to be fair.
You're right, it is. It's either, and you know, like, you do good things and you get a good ending, you do bad things, you get a bad ending. It'll obviously be a lot more sort of complex than that. in the way that Demon Souls is. Like, some of the things that affect World Tendency in Demon Souls is just fucking weird. And the outcomes of World Tendency are bizarre. Like, it just... Like, if you die a lot, you get Black World Tendency and the game gets harder. Like, it's totally fucking ass backwards. But, something like that, I'd love that.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good. Especially in the open world setting, because it'd make it quite easy. I mean, it'd make the traversal of the world more effective, you know?
Yeah.
So if you've got to go somewhere and it's not, you've been there for too long, you've died a few too many times, it encourages you to go somewhere else and then come back later, which is a good Dark Souls thing, I think. I think Dark Souls and Bloodborne and things sort of lost that feeling that Demon Souls had, maybe, where you had multiple ways you could go or multiple things to complete. But should you get stuck, you can just go off to somewhere else. Obviously, I think Dark Souls 1 was quite good at that in some ways. But I always felt like there was like a clear limitation. For example, like if you start Dark Souls 1, you go down into the where the skeletons and stuff are. You're just like, well, what am I going down here for? Like, this is clearly not the right way to go.
Yeah, if you try it, I think the first time I played Dark Souls, I tried going through the graveyard first.
Yeah.
And I couldn't kill a single skeleton. Like, they had so much health. I couldn't even kill one. And I was shit at the game.
But, you know, if like Elden Ring's world is populated with X amount of various different types of worlds, which all you can start anywhere and sort of play your way through, but then cap yourself off because the world progresses and gets too hard for your natural progression within that area. It encourages you to go off somewhere else and then come back later, which would be quite a good thing.
Yeah, I think that would make sense, to be honest, because if they want to create a sense of openness, they're going to have to encourage you to go and explore all different places. But obviously, they still need to have a difficulty curve in it.
Yeah.
But with it being FromSoft, it'll be one of those things where, like, once you get past the big hump of difficulty, the game opens up a lot, and by the time you're past a certain level, things are actually just generally get quite easy everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that I had, which is a big ask, and is definitely not going to be I'm not going to get what I want. No poison swamps, please.
Yeah.
Please.
They're insufferable, aren't they?
Fucking poison swamps. What is his obsession? Miyazaki, I know you're listening, you bastard. What's your obsession with poison swamps? I fucking hate them. They're in all of them.
They are the worst. I've just got to the Sekiro one.
Oh,
I think.
Fuck me.
It's just like, bloody hell. You come through a few cave tunnels, and then it's like, oh, here comes the purple water.
Have you fought the second Snake Eyes yet?
No.
You're gonna hate that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I could swear he's in a poison swamp.
Probably.
We're gonna get the game, and Elden Ring will be the entire map will be a poison swamp. That'll be it. It's our most ambitious game yet. The whole map is a poison swamp. And your horse is just sort of like tripping over itself, trying to sort of wade its way through the poison swamp.
Yeah.
The horse combat is like completely pointless because any sort of horse riding, you can't like go faster than a normal man would walk. And at the same time, there's a dragon trying to breathe fire on you at all times.
Yeah, that'd be a good game, I reckon.
I'd pay for that.
Poison Swamp Simulator 2022.
What about the combat? Like, what kind of expectations for the combat do you have?
I don't have any expectations for the combat to do anything differently than what it already does. I don't know what it could possibly do. They'll probably implement some different parrying system like they generally do.
Because, the Dark Souls parry system, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the parry system. I almost never parry in Dark Souls, and I hate the...
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah, and I hate the bits where it forces you to.
Yeah.
Like, I hate the fight with Gwyn at the end of the first Dark Souls, because, like, you basically have to parry to get through it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I can't do it. Especially in the first Dark Souls, it's quite hard. Pontiff Sullivan in Dark Souls 3, getting through that without parrying is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like they really cracked parrying with Sekiro. It's not immediately obvious the timing in Sekiro, but once you learn it, the parrying is quite satisfying in that compared to Souls. And I hope
absolutely.
that they sort of carry that over from Sekiro.
Yeah, I always found that like when I was playing Dark Souls and things, I always found that so you'd start and then you'd see like a little undead with like a little dagger, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is how you parry," and it's like we can do it there. But I always felt like when you got to like the bigger bosses and the big strong men, that it would get really difficult to imagine me being able to parry it. So I just never tried. So like, if there's like a dragon, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's fine, I'll just fucking parry him. His feet are like 4 times the size of like my life.
There's some of them though where like you wouldn't imagine you could parry them, and you can.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But
it is such a gamble, isn't it?
Yeah, I always went with Dark Souls. I was always dodging, just rolling like all over the place because I just never had the confidence to do it. And Sekiro like sort of balances it out a little bit. It seems a bit more feasible. But then when I got to Gyobo Masataka Oniwa, and you will not pass the castle gates. When I got to him, I was like, I can't parry him. I must need to roll. And then I learned that you can parry. You can parry a man on a 20-foot horse with a 60-foot spear. Of course, you can parry him. Yeah, easy. What? You don't have a shield. It's all right. Just use your little sword. It's fine. That you have all the way through the game. By the looks of things.
I like the feel of dodging. You feel like a proper fucking Don when like someone takes a swing at you and they just can't hit you because you're just dodging left and right. But I think I would probably prefer them to go more the route of like the dodging style combat. But maybe that is something when they say that they're trying to make it more ambitious, that they're trying to do is open up the options of combat, where it's like Sekiro forces you to play in a certain way and Bloodborne kind of forces you to play in a certain way, and sort of opening that up and merging their combat systems, and you can sort of find something that you like out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, imagine if you start a character. Imagine if because when you change them, and you can be like a thief or a knight or a cleric or whatever you want to do. They're generally just stat changes that you can then just change anyway, and you get a different starting equipment. But imagine if in Elden Ring you can change your starting character to say like a thief, but he actually has like limitations where he has access to equipment that you can't use elsewhere. So you actually have like a shinobi type where it has access to like tools around that, and likewise with maybe 4 other types of characters, because then you'd have like 4 different Soulsborne games in the character development.
I think as long as they implement a sort of respec system like the one in Dark Souls 3 that gives you the option to sort of change a build if you don't really like it. Because I would be kind of, especially when you're starting one of these games for the first time, you don't understand how it works. If you get locked into a character style that you don't like,
start again.
Yeah, you don't want to start again, and you don't want to play like fucking 80 hours of it, and it's pissing you off because you hate that build. If it's limited to certain equipment types and stuff. Anything else? Is there anything else that in particular stands out that you really want from Elden Ring? Or
no, I think my little multiplayer idea and this little survival ideas were nice. That's my little wish list. But I've got some other little things. Like I've put a love interest. Oh, mama.
Oh, I'm getting all hot and bothered.
I've put a love interest because I feel like it's never really touched into it before. Like a bit sort of, I guess like, it's going to sound a bit weird, but I guess Sekiro sort of has that concept of like a love interest in the way that you're sort of chasing, what's his name? Don't
say it. Oh, we're getting into dodgy territory here. I don't like this.
No, but you're chasing something, and I always feel like sometimes in like Dark Souls, I find myself like struggling to grasp the concept of why I'm trying to progress through something. Because sometimes
it's so like abstract.
Yeah, but then this is why I didn't want to put this in my main wish list. I've wrote my wish list now, but this is an extra thing that I'd like exploring, because if there was like I feel that's one of the things I like about Sekiro. It's like I know where the story is trying to go, but
it's a much more sort of human story in Sekiro, isn't it? Whereas it is a little bit opaque. The point of Dark Souls.
yeah.
Were you not pleased with the love story in Dark Souls 3?
Oh yeah, that was good. With Henry.
Did you not find that really heartwarming? What about the bit where you drive the sword into her face? people who haven't played Dark Souls 3, there's an optional sort of side story where you effectively like trick a woman into marrying you
And then stab her in the face.
But the marriage isn't a marriage, it's like a weird sort of like death ritual.
Yeah. Didn't he put like a cloth over her face as well?
Yeah, you get to what's it called? You know the place in Dark Souls. Anno Londo. You get to Anno Londo and there's those little lumpy men who are dodgy and they give you extra points. And they're like, I don't know, I was going to say magicians. They're like sorcerers. And you get to this church and Henri, this like NPC that you've met who's like a female knight or a male knight if you're playing as a female character. I think it gender swaps depending on which gender you choose. And they're conducting like a secret ritual that she seems unaware of where she becomes your bride or groom. And so that you can take the mantle of like the Lord of the Hollows or something at the end of the game, and like you turn up and she's laid down in this church with a cloth over her head, and the marriage ritual is that you go up and you drive a sword into her face. And then she's at the end of it. So I mean, like, she must survive it because she's at the end of the game and she's all like, "Oh, I'm your wife now, and you're the king of the Hollows."
Everyone would survive that.
Yeah, that's fucking horrible.
Yeah, that was brutal. That's pretty disturbing when I did that.
I loved it.
I did it pretty accidentally. There was a Let's Play that I watched it used to be on IGN, that I called RKG, who they always make like weird like characters, call him Finchy, like sort of from The Office. But on Dark Souls 3, they sort of made him like a frog, like a big blue frog with like, used to joke about how he like ate chapsticks and stuff like that. And then when he got to the cutscene, I was in absolute hysterics when it's just this like frog person like in a stupid face and massive smile, like slightly hollowed out, just driving a sword through this poor lady's face.
I make all my characters blowable.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Whenever I play a Souls game now, I always make it a character called Blowbo, and it's like a guy with like a blue face and like massive bulbous eyes and purple hair. And on Demon Souls PS5, I sort of changed it up a bit and I made Lady Blowbo, and she was a beautiful fair maiden version of Blowbo. But yeah, whenever I do a Souls game, I always play as Blowbo.
That's so good. But yeah, I'd be up for some sort of love interest in the new game.
Yeah, I think it would be an interesting wrinkle to the story, definitely. Based on Miyazaki's track record, he'd probably turn it into a fucking horrifying nightmare.
Yeah.
So
I guess as well, if it's quite open worldy, and we were talking about Zelda, and then it's like, oh, you got to do this to try and get your love interest. Just might come across a bit Zelda-ish.
What about like a San Andreas style, like hot chocolate sex mini game?
Oh,
we're all getting, it's getting steamy in here.
Or what about like one of the GTA mini games, that where you get to control little boats, or like they had one in Red Dead, where it's like you could play the little battleship. That'd be good.
It definitely looks like the kind of world that has battleships in it.
They said loads of equipment.
It's got
carriers.
equipment in it, like cranes, forklifts, loads of equipment. Yeah, well, I think that'll do it. Elden Ring wishlist. We've cracked it. Well, we're recording this on a Tuesday. trying to get ahead of whatever Elden Ring trailer drops. I guarantee you we'll be releasing this on the following Monday. I guarantee you tomorrow fucking Elden Ring trailer will drop.
Yeah.
And it'll address everything that we've said in the podcast. It'll literally be like a tagline in the trailer. It's like,
absolutely no aircraft
there's
carriers.
no aircraft carriers in this game. Miyazaki, like a headline on Kotaku, Miyazaki confirms there are no forklift trucks in Elden Ring. Bastard. Well, I think it's time for this week, Steve.
I think it is time for this week, Steve. I think you're right, Chris.
Do you want to explain what this week, Steve, is?
This week, Steve, is our weekly segment, which people tune in and listen all the way through our episodes just to get to, where we talk about what we've been watching and playing, or what games we've been watching and what games we've been playing, as I said last week. So yeah, what you been watching?
I've been rewatching Toast of London.
Toast of London?
Have you ever seen Toast of London?
No.
Do you know Matt Berry?
I thought this was a Raj recommendation for a minute.
No. It's on Netflix. It's a comedy series it's got Matt Berry in it, and he plays like a theatre actor in London that fucking just everyone hates, and it's like super surreal and really silly, and just it's really funny, and like it's one of those shows where I've seen it a million times, and like whenever I'm just sort of like I'm knackered and just need a bit of R&R. I just need a bit of a laugh. I just watch Toast of London again. It's really good.
Fair enough. Is it a comedy? Like a dark comedy?
Yeah, it's a comedy. It's like a BBC. I think it was on the BBC. It's like half hour. Have you ever seen like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place?
No.
Oh, you should watch that. Actually, you know what? I said BBC. I think it was on Channel 4.
I know what you mean.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's just fucking bizarre, but it's really funny. There's an episode with Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's all on Netflix. It's hilarious. I mean, it's a very particular kind of humor. If you don't really like really surreal, silly, nonsensical humor, you might not like it.
Yeah.
But I think you'd probably enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll have a little gander at some point.
What about you?
I haven't actually been watching anything this last week, really, outside of my usuals. But I've been playing Ori and the Blind Forest.
Oh, all right. I thought you were going to say Will of the Wisp.
No.
I've only heard of Will of the Wisp.
Will of the Wisp is the second one.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd play the first one first. It's a really good looking game, I'll tell you that. It's a bit like some days I'm like, this is really good. And then other days I'm like, do I really want to put a game on that's sort of just got this like, everything's just like epic and like nature and like, oh, everything's so beautiful. And there's like constantly like string arrangements blasting in your ear. Yeah. It's like nice at first, but then it just constantly goes on.
That's a bit great.
Yeah. And some days I'm like, I don't really want to listen to like a crescending fucking string arrangement whilst I bounce around leaves. You know what I mean?
Sure from like what I'm sure I've heard that of what I'm aware of it, that the second one is like considerably better than the first one.
Yeah. I'm sure reviews better.
Yeah.
The first one,
to the second one.
It is good though. It is good. It's just a certain like, you got to be in like a certain mood for it. But
it's like a 2D side scroller, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like probably the best looking like 2D platform that I've ever seen. And I'm playing it on the Switch as well, so I'm just playing it like on the handheld thing. And but it's really hard as well. It's not like massively hard. It's got this feature where like there is save points, but they're like so like few and far between. So you've got to like use your energy to create a save point. So you've got to like gamble when you think you'll be ready to use your save point and then try and get through the next bit of platforming. But if you die, it just takes you all straight back to the save point. Everything's undone. But there's quite a lot of like combined like fluid platforming where you got to like do a backflip and climb up like a wall and then jump off the side and avoid spikes and things. It's quite like difficult. I remember I was talking to you about Celeste. Yeah. Celeste is solid, and this sort of is quite like Celeste sometimes in this wall running platforming, because sometimes there'll be like an entire section where you're just wall running and you have to like be very nimble and get all your button timing right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just dead and you've got to do it all again.
It's like unforgiving platforming.
Yeah, it's not really hard. It's like it's a nice amount of hard. Yeah, it's really good. To be fair,
This is gonna sound like a baffling take, but I never. Sounds ridiculous. In my head, I'm thinking of like this sounds fucking stupid.
Is this going to be as good as your Horizon take, where you were like, oh?
I hope the second one's better. I hope that the second one's better than the first one. I do a podcast.
We have such good takes.
I don't feel... What I feel like when I'm playing a 2D platformer, especially in like 2021, that it's not a real game. You know what I mean? Like 2D platformers feel like a relic of a bygone era, and that I acknowledge they are a totally valid type of game, and I do enjoy them. I recently replayed, well, not even replayed, just played all of the classic Mario games and stuff, and I've never finished it, but played Hollow Knight and enjoyed it. But I always feel like I'm not playing a full game when I play a 2D sort of side scroller. I feel like I'm like...
I do know what you mean. They're like the equivalent of cover bands.
Yeah, sort of. It doesn't feel like a full, complete game in the way that a fully realized 3D world is.
Yeah.
And I think especially because 2D side scrollers platformers actually do tend to be quite difficult. But I kind of get annoyed with games like that because I feel like if I'm going to play a 2D side scroller, it's like the kind of thing that I'm only half paying attention to. And when it's got really punitive systems in it, like limited saves, and you get sent back to a certain point, that would just really piss me off, because I'd be like, I'm not playing this to put my full attention into it. I'm playing this on the sofa and just sort of not using my brain. Yeah. But it's a stupid take, and I'll shut up. I'll shut up now.
No, I know what you mean, because that's exactly what I was doing with Ori, where it was like, as soon as I was playing it, I was like, oh, this is pretty, look at it, it's such a nice looking game. And as soon as it got hard, or as soon as I died and had to restart, just turn it off.
Yeah,
and
you just get frustrated.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I'm not bothered. But it is that game particularly, and I understand there's other 2D platforms. I think there's a game called Child of Light or something, and they're all quite similar. Where it's the world is completely interlinked. So the 2D nature, you go up down, everything's all one level. There's not a hub screen where like what I believe there is on most Mario games, where you just go stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and you move through that. Instead, it's you got to explore a world, but it's all very consistent, so you can move from any point to the other point with completely no loading screens.
It's kind of like a Metroid.
Yeah.
Yeah, Metroid, old Metroid, Super Metroid and stuff like that. They're built like that.
Really?
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Oh, well, there you go. But yeah, I quite like that in them. Because it doesn't feel too limiting in a way. It does feel a bit more like a world that you just so happen to be experiencing from the side.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas I think the stage process of platforming can make it sometimes feel a bit like you've got to try that challenge, and then the next one you can do tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I like level-based platforming, because I think the Super Mario 3D Land and 3D World are good in that regard, because it's just little short levels.
Yeah.
Built around platforming challenges. You can just sort of take them in little chunks, do them one at a time. I feel like it might be I'd find it a little overwhelming, kind of being thrust into a big open world that's entirely from the side on with really in-depth platforming.
It's not as overwhelming as it sounds. I do know what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, I know I just slagged off 2D side scrollers, but growing up, Metroid was one of my favorite games. I had Metroid Fusion for the GBA and Metroid Zero Mission, which was a remake of the first Metroid. And I played Super Metroid. I'm really into Metroid style games, and they were all built like that. Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania type platformer. So
fair enough.
But yeah, I've been playing Ocarina of Time on the 3DS.
Oh yeah.
And I'm taking it really slowly. Like I've just been, I don't know. I feel like I haven't had a lot of time to play games recently, so just having something sort of handheld to sit on the sofa and play has been good. But it's the first time I've actually played Ocarina of Time through, and as much as I'm enjoying it, you can tell it's an old game because I barely have a fucking clue what I'm meant to do at any point. It's so fucking obtuse, some of the things that you have to do, and it's got a really interesting setup. And the version I'm playing, the 3DS version, is like, it's not a remake, it's like a graphical remaster. But yeah, it's good. I'm only like halfway through it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks a lot for listening. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at @buttonchopspod. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it helps us out massively. If you're listening on Spotify, don't worry about it. Or do worry about it and go on Apple Podcasts even though you're not listening on there, and just give us a review anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to get in touch, you can drop us a line at our email address, buttonchopspodcast@gmail.com, or DM us or email us on our social medias. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at @BeezesForFoon, which is actually a Toast of London reference. I've just realised.
Oh, there you go.
Remember that? Yeah, all of my devices and logins are all names from the show Toast of London.
If you want to try and hack Chris, go fucking watch Toast of London.
In Toast of London, there's an episode where so Stephen Toast, the main character's landlord, is dating a girl who went in for a facelift, but it was actually Toast's arch nemesis, Ray Purchase, giving a reconstructive plastic surgery to look exactly like Bruce Forsyth, and he did it by posing as a surgeon named BeezesForFoon.
So good.
Funny little tidbit.
I think you told me about that before, actually, when we were in Vietnam.
Back when we were in the war in Vietnam. And also I've got a YouTube channel, Little Davey Reviews Things. I'm starting up a new thing reviewing shit games I've found on the Nintendo Switch eShop.
Teddy Gangs.
Yeah, I did a review of a game called Teddy Gangs. It was really bad. Anything you want to add?
No, my social handle is cleverwoot. Feel free to let me know that you hate the fact that I keep dissing Middlesbrough.
You're going to get death threats soon.
Well, then my security will knock them out.
Oh, well. You're all right then.
My guard dogs will have them. From the Patreon.
On that note, that's it for this week. Thanks a lot for listening, and bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.